This from Robert Costa, a journalist on the Hill. He says Boehner and other House leaders will go over debt limit options at a meeting tonight. Will likely be long. Dinner will be served per internal memo. This is important because, of course, the Treasury Department's spending authority runs out February 27th. Live now to the floor of the U.S. House.
The House will be in order. The chair lays before the House a communication from the Speaker.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., February 10, 2014. I hereby appoint the Honorable Luke Messer to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, John A. Boehner, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Pursuant to the order of the House of January 7, 2014, the Chair will now recognize members from lists submitted by the majority and minority leaders for morning hour debate. The Chair will alternate recognition between the parties, with each party limited to 1 hour, and each member, other than the majority and minority leader and minority whip, limited to 5 minutes. But in no event shall the debate continue beyond 1:50 p.m. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Holding, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, over the last several weeks, I've come to the House floor on numerous times to talk about the interim nuclear agreement this administration is negotiating with Iran. I've come here to discuss exactly what the administration is, or more importantly, isn't negotiating, and what that means for our national security and the stability of the region as a whole. And while there can be no question that we need to continue having that discussion about whether or about whatever else the regime in Tehran decides to do, like send warships off of our eastern coast, we also need to take some time to discuss what exactly the real power brokers in Iran are doing when they aren't talking about destroying Israel or attacking America. Many of my colleagues have been down on this very floor before to discuss the oppressive nature of the Iranian regime, and it's important that we remind folks just how tyrannical those who are in power there really are. So just what exactly have we seen since the election of the self-described moderate president in Iran? We have largely seen the continuation of the same human rights abuses we have seen for years in Iran. We've seen the grip of Tehran's media and internet censors tighten since Mr. Rouhani came to power. Websites have been restricted and mobile phone applications have also been blocked. There have also been reports of numerous newspapers and blogs being shut down altogether and the reporters and editors being arrested. Now, what do they all have in common, Mr. Speaker? What they have in common is these people advocate for reform and are critical of the regime in Tehran. We've seen the number of Iran's executions occur at an alarming rate since Mr. Rouhani took office. There are many theories as to why this is happening, but the fact remains somewhere upwards of 60 people are being executed each month in Iran, and that some of these executions are being carried out in public with those in charge intentionally leaving the bodies to hang from construction cranes in public areas. We've seen the persecution of religious minorities continue. We should all support freedom of religion, and the regime's persistent crackdowns and arrest of Christians, Baha'is, and other religious minorities should trouble everyone. And, Mr. Speaker, as I have talked about before, Iran continues to prop up Hezbollah across the Middle East. Their involvement across the region is widely noted, but of particular concern should be their connection to Syria. Iran sends trained murderers and weapons to prolong the brutal civil war that continues to destroy Syria, separate families, and cause millions to flee their country. Sadly, this is not even a comprehensive list of what goes on inside of Iran. We could discuss their appalling human rights trafficking record or their full record of sponsoring terrorism, in addition to what we've already discussed. So why is all of this important when we're talking about the administration's pursuit of a nuclear deal with Iran? Two reasons. First, it should serve as a stark reminder of just who exactly the Obama administration is really negotiating with. And secondly, it shows the true intentions and belief of those that are really in power in Iran. It shows the disconnect between the rhetoric of the self-described moderate president and what is really going on within Iran's borders. Above all, it shows where the real power lies, which is in the hands of the supreme leader of Iran. To forget about the plight of the Iranian people and not address what happens domestically in Iran would be a failure, plain and simple, and one which will continue to cost innocent lives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. McGovern, for 5 minutes.
My remarks.
Action. The gentleman is recognized. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to bring attention to and highlight Bread for the World's annual hunger report. This year's report is entitled Ending Hunger in America, and frankly, it couldn't be more appropriate or timely. Mr. Speaker, over 49 million Americans go hungry every year, and we in the federal government, we in this Congress, are not doing nearly enough to fight and end hunger in this country. In fact, over the past 6 months, Congress stood by and let an $11 billion cut to the premier anti-hunger safety net program, SNAP, take effect. And to make matters worse, Congress followed up by enacting another $8 billion cut to SNAP as part of the Farm Bill. We should all be ashamed. The fact is, Congress continues to make it harder and harder for the hungry in America to make ends meet and put food on their table. And although the Obama administration came into office under the most difficult economic conditions in nearly a century, they also came in with a lot of promise. In fact, President Obama came in with, among other things, a pledge to end childhood hunger in America by 2015. And that goal was achievable. Unfortunately, we've gone backwards over the past 5 years. And while I still believe there's time for the Obama administration to turn this around and make some real headway in the fight to end hunger in America, the sad reality is we are not going to end child hunger in America by 2015 and may not even make a significant dent in hunger by the end of this administration. But just because President Obama will not meet his stated goal doesn't mean that we should give up. And that's why I am encouraged by this report from Bread for the World. First and foremost, it is refreshing that this report is honest and blunt. It rightfully states that hunger is a subset of poverty and that we can't truly end hunger without addressing poverty. Just look at a few of the statistics listed in the report. The average incomes of the top 1% of households rose by 19.6% in 2012, while the incomes of the other 99% grew just by 1%. Nearly two-thirds of SNAP recipients are children, elderly or disabled. Among SNAP households with children and at least one working-age non-disabled adult, 62% work while receiving SNAP, and 87% work in the prior or subsequent year, which hopefully should put to rest this distortion that somehow people on SNAP don't want to work. And another statistic here is that while children make up roughly 24% of our total population, they comprise 1/3 of the nation's poor. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that poverty must be addressed because that is the root cause of hunger. But Bread for the World lays out achievable and timely goals, goals that are not pie in the sky, but actually doable. They call for an end to hunger in America by 2030, and they do so in a 4-point plan. 1, a jobs agenda, 2, a stronger safety net, 3, human capital development, and 4, public-private partnerships to support innovative community-led initiatives against hunger. They call for achievable goals of a 25% reduction in hunger by 2017, a 50% reduction by 2023, and completely ending hunger by 2030. Now, we can do this if we make the political decision to focus on and commit to ending hunger. And I fully support this plan. I only want to move quicker to achieve the goal of ending hunger. This report rightly states that, and I quote, ending hunger in the United States will require leadership not only at the federal level, but also at the state and local levels as well, end quote. We already have governors and mayors who are working to combat hunger. Governors Deval Patrick of Massachusetts and Don Beebe of Arkansas are committed to this effort. Former Boston Mayor Tom Menino was a leader, and I know that the new mayors of New York and Boston, Bill de Blasio and Marty Walsh, are just as committed. And they aren't the only ones. But we need more help and commitment. the White House should convene a conference on food and nutrition to build on the recommendations in the Bread for the World report and to come up with a comprehensive, holistic plan to end hunger in America. Hunger at its core is a political condition. We know how to end it. We have the food and the resources to end hunger once and for all. We just don't have the political will to do so. Bread for the World, through this annual report and through their everyday actions, is trying to build the political will to end hunger in America. I know we can do it. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. Seeing no further requests, pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until approximately 2 p.m. today.
Members are taking a short break now before reconvening, as you heard, at 2 p.m. Eastern today. They may take another break to allow members to return to the Capitol from their home districts. 2 bills on the agenda today, including one dealing with drought mapping. Any requested votes will be held after 6:30 Eastern. And also, we're hearing that House Republicans will be holding a meeting tonight to discuss the way forward on a plan to address the debt ceiling. That meeting is scheduled for 5:30 tonight. The debt ceiling plan at the top of the agenda. The Treasury Department spending authority runs out on February 27th. If there are remarks after that meeting, we plan to bring those to you on the C-SPAN networks. And we'll have more live House coverage when the gavel comes down here on C-SPAN. And we also have a